Felix. Felix, how are you? Dink, meet Felix later.
Hello.
Felix, say hello to Dink.
Hi, Dink.
Dink, say goodbye to Felix. Man talk.
So, as we all know, the film and television industry weren't particularly kind to women in the 60s and 70s.
The final accolade, and I quote, "She is especially telling in projecting sluttish eroticism. She is Miss Helen Mirren."
Oh my god. Look, we do know that things did get better.
You're a terminated fucker.
As the years went on, Hollywood started to respect women a bit better and gave them more powerful roles. Roles that were interesting and badass. And they were hugely successful. I mean, Captain Marvel, which stars a female lead, just made a bloody $1 billion. And sure, things aren't perfect, but look, we've come a long way from, you know, women just getting like their arse slapped by a Scottish man. Now listen, I haven't gathered you all here today to talk about sexism in the film industry. Trust me, there's a lot smarter people out there than myself that are already talking about it. No, look, I'm here to talk about sexism, which is associated with a very popular film character. So here's the deal, I'm going to give you 3 guesses of who that character— oh fuck, hold on, his name's in the video title. Yes, so we're talking about this guy.
Bond. James Bond.
Yes, him. You see, Bond's past behaviour towards women has repulsed newer viewers. And as a lifelong Bond fan, I have to agree, yes, there's some scenes that are cringeworthy.
Yes, my name is Bond. James Bond. I am looking for Dr. Goodhead.
You just found her.
A woman?
Jesus Christ, you know, even for 1979 that kind of sexism seems a bit outdated. I mean, Marie Curie was a female scientist and she won a Nobel Prize for her work in 1903! And then 76 years later you got a guy who's still acting surprised that female scientists do exist.
A woman?
Now, moments like this can, I guess not excused, but maybe just explained, because, I mean, it was just a very different time. What's harder to explain, actually, is that moment in Skyfall. You know, the one with Berenice Marlowe. She played, like, this abused sex slave.
Tattoo on your wrist is Macau's sex trade. You belong to one of the houses. What were you, 12? 13?
And it's just like, oh my goodness, this poor woman, she must have been through hell. And then she showers, minding her own business, and then fucking Bond just like creeps in, naked. And he's like, yo, I'm gonna do you now. And the whole thing's just a bit weird. Like Bond's thinking is like, oh my goodness, this woman that's been forced into non-consensual sex for most of her life, she will just love it if I sneak into her shower uninvited with my giant James Bond cock hanging out. It's like, no, you don't know that, James. Get out of there. Also, she probably just felt a bit obligated to go along with it. Because in an earlier scene, Bond was offering to kill her boss, which would consequently set her free.
Can you kill him?
Yes.
Will you?
So when he turns up later completely naked, she's probably thinking, oh god, he wants some sort of payment to complete this task. Anyway, this problematic scene is harder to explain than those older ones because this is only a few years old, so I would say that accusations of sexism are quite well justified. However, is this enough of a reason to scrap the character entirely? I don't think it is. Okay, how about completely reinventing the character? No, I don't think that'd work either. I mean, look, I'm totally happy for there never to be scenes like this in a Bond film again. However, I do think the character should have moments of very mild, chauvinistic behaviour. And why is that? Well, because that is part of the character. James Bond is a spy, and a big part of being a spy is gathering intelligence. And sometimes a way of gathering that intelligence is through seduction. In fact, the CIA referred to them as Romeo spies. Another reason for him to be chauvinistic is because, honestly, he's just a bit of a bastard. I mean, he's basically a sex addict with a drinking problem who murders people.
I'm just a professional doing a job.
Me too.
I mean, just look at him go, just murdering countless people. He just doesn't give a shit. And that is the thing about him. He's a character with a lot of flaws. And for me, that's what makes him so interesting. And if you eradicate those flaws, you will end up with a character who is a lot safer, but as a consequence, a character who is, oh my god, like a lot less interesting. And of course, there's plenty of movies and TV shows where the lead character is flawed, but you do root for them. With that said though, there is one crucial ingredient that is needed to make those characters work. And that, my friends, is self-awareness. Now, the protagonist doesn't need to be aware of their own flaws, but the film itself does. And this is why the supporting characters are extremely important, because they're capable of holding up a mirror to the main character and showing them who they really are.
Everything I have ever cared about is gone. Ruined turned to shit. Dead ever since I hooked up with the great Heisenberg.
So if the audience is put off by the main character's bad behaviour, these characters are there to acknowledge it. Also, even though that the character is flawed, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to be unlikable. I'll tell you what is a good example of this, and that's Peter Quill from the Guardians of the Galaxy films. On paper, the guy has some pretty imperfect characteristics. I mean look, he's a murderer, he's a womanizer, and to top it all off, he's a thief. But despite all that, the character is actually really likeable. Because sure, he has some bad characteristics, but he also has plenty of good characteristics, which balances it out. And of course, this is exactly what Bond can be. Actually, in a lot of the films, that's what Bond is. A hero who saves the day, and a bit of a bastard. And for me, no Bond does this better than Pierce Brosnan.
Bond. James Bond.
Now, I'm not saying he's my favourite Bond. The last few he did really bloody prevented that from ever happening. Oh god, this scene. No, I remember seeing this in the theatres back when it was released and it looked like complete shit back then as well.
Your mama.
Oh my god, stop showing me this! No, I want to talk about another Bond film he did. I mean, you may have already guessed, that film is obviously The World Is Not... I'm lying, it's GoldenEye! Now listen here, this film is great on just about every level. It has excellent action sequences, fantastic stunt work, some brilliant special effects and model work, an interesting storyline, a great score, which I can't play for you, a fantastically catchy theme song, which I also can't play for you, god damn it YouTube, cool gadgets, a wonderful female lead, a terrific and memorable main villain, 3, count it 1, 2, 3, excellent side villains, and one of the best portrayals of James Bond ever.
James Bond. Charming, sophisticated secret agent.
Exactly, dude. The guy's super suave, but also super dangerous. And he's also just having so much fun. And what really makes him work is that the film is completely self-aware of what he is. This is actually probably the most self-aware Bond film ever made.
What's the matter, James? No glib remark? No pithy comeback?
And with that self-awareness, it completely addresses the past behaviour that Bond is known for.
You don't like me, Bond. You don't like my methods. You think I'm an accountant. A bean counter, more interested in my numbers than your instincts.
The thought had occurred to me.
Good. Because I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War. Whose boyish charms, though wasted on me, obviously appeal to that young woman I sent out to evaluate you.
Point taken.
You know, making M, his boss, a woman was such a great decision. Making the character a man again, it seems like a bit of a setback, doesn't it? Now listen, characters like M is what I'm talking about. Supporting characters that can address the main character's flaws. But hey, the main villain can do that too.
Oh, please, James, spare me the Freud. I might as well ask you if all the vodka martinis ever silenced the screams of all the men you've killed. Or if you find forgiveness in the arms of all those willing women, for all the dead ones you failed to protect.
And for once, Bond has no comeback to that. That implies there's some truth to that statement. It really is some great writing. Good work, fellas. Now look, none of this progressive talk would mean much if the female characters in this film weren't independent and powerful women. But they are! I mean, M is fantastic.
If you think for one moment I don't have the balls to send a man out to die, your instincts are dead wrong. I've no compunction about sending you to your death. But I won't do it on a whim, even with your cavalier attitude towards life.
Then you got Moneypenny, who completely holds her own against Bond.
What would I ever do without you?
As far as I can remember, James, you've never had me.
Natalia is a wonderful heroine. I mean, firstly, she's incredibly smart.
She's a moron. A second-level programmer. She works on the guidance system. She doesn't even have access to the firing codes. Retro rockets firing.
And she's also really tough.
Do you know how to use one of these?
Yes.
Good.
And finally, you have Xenia Onatopp, probably my favourite James Bond henchman. Whoops, sorry, I meant henchwoman. She's definitely the most sexualised female character in the film, but the sexual energy she lets off is more for her own pleasure. You see, she's a sexual sadist turned on by death. She's such a bizarre character, but that's what's fantastic about her.
Shh.
I have a small surprise from your friends back at the barracks.
You think I've gone to heaven?
Not yet.
So when you have female characters this good, you're less concerned they're going to be exploited by Bond because they're such independent characters.
Hope springs eternal.
You know, this sort of behaviour could qualify as sexual harassment.
So I think it's okay for Bond to be a bit of a leering bastard, as long as you've got good female characters to counter, or at very least, acknowledge that behaviour.
Precisely.
This is why Phoebe WallerBridge is such a great match for the franchise. Her work on Fleabag and Killing Eve proves that she's extremely talented at writing strong female characters and highly flawed characters. Oh, and she's good at writing spy shit too. So she was asked about writing for the new Bond film in a recent interview, saying that the important thing is that the film treats women properly, but also saying that Bond doesn't have to, he needs to stay true to his character. And yeah, that's pretty much my point. Although she was able to successfully articulate that point in just 3 sentences, whereas oh my god, I made a 10-minute video saying the exact same thing. Oh, and yes, I did see that in the newest Bond film, the 007 codename has been reassigned to a black female character. Apparently the codename became vacant after the events of Spectre, where Bond has now left MI5. Well, I kind of thought he was just going on holiday for a bit, but no, apparently he's quit. Look at him driving off in his little car. By the way, while we're on the topic, Spectre sucked. I'm the author to all your pain, James. Are you now? No, you're not, because this has just been a retconned plot twist. It was... Okay, people don't know what I'm talking about. Most people don't, but... oh, never mind. Hey, so this is okay by me. More 00 agents the better. That's what I always say. I don't, but I should.
After you, 006.
So in conclusion, Bond can remain a bit of a sexist bastard, as long as there's strong female characters to challenge him on that behaviour. And if you disagree, hey, that's totally cool with me. We all have our own opinions, and it just happens to be my opinion that GoldenEye is good, and Fleabag is good, and Killing Eve is good, but Die Another Day is bad. Although admittedly, I kind of like the invisible car. Actually, some people bring up the cars being the worst thing about that film, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? With everything else that was going on in there? Anyway, go watch one of those things that I said was good. Okay, bye. I don't know how to end videos. I end them like phone calls. Bye. I love you.